The Seahawks always feel like they're almost there. And that's what keeps happening. And it's really frustrating as a fan to not know if they're going to be able to close out games or play good in the second half or figure out a way to win a game. And that's usually what used to be the Seahawks thing. Now, different quarterback, different team, all those different things, fine. But it always felt like the Seahawks way, no matter who was playing, no matter who's the quarterback, who's the running back, who's the defense, they always found a way to pull out miracles, right? There was always a way like, oh, we're down 7 going into the fourth. That's a win. We're down 3. Oh, if we're up. If we're up, we're never going to blow a lead, right? Like we're the Seahawks, or we might blow it, but we're not going to lose that game. That Seahawks magic is seeming like to fade away in some ways. We have so many games this year that I just felt like if they played a tiny bit better, or it was an almost win game, that it would completely be a different season today based on the record being different and those wins happening, right? You look at the situation against the Bengals. They lost 17-13. Not a bad loss, 4 points in Cincinnati. And that game was all about a couple plays here or there, a couple red zones, a couple mistakes. You can't control it, obviously, but that felt like a game the Seahawks usually would have pulled out. Only down 4. You needed to score once in the red zone. I think there was 3 opportunities that they didn't score any points in the red zone at all, not even 3. And you lose that game in a close one. If you switch that right there, the Seahawks are 7-6 and then the last playoff spot. Instead, they're 6-7, looking from the outside in. They are behind the Rams, behind the Packers, and behind the Vikings for the last playoff spot. You even outside of the Ravens game where they got their ass kicked, you look at that Rams game. They lost by 1. Jason Myers missed a game-winning kick. A game that you would usually think that the Seahawks would win. Like the Seahawks losing on a game-winning kick at SoFi where it was, it's not the hardest place to kick at because it's mostly indoor. There's some open air, but it's a mostly indoor stadium. Seahawks lose by 1. That's 2 games right there where it completely flips the narrative. If you won that Bengals game and you won that Rams game, your season's completely different, right? You're a, 8-5 team? 8-5 team instead of a 6-7 team. So it's a huge difference. And now, obviously, against the 49ers 2 weeks ago on Thanksgiving, they pretty much handed us that L. I mean, the 49ers are just better than the Seahawks right now. They're one of the best teams in the NFL. But then you go on Thursday Night Football against the Cowboys, and you think that whole game, I'm like, wow, the Seahawks are really going to beat the Cowboys on the road in Dallas on Thursday Night Football on TV. And they pretty much showed all game that they're a team that's going to win this game. They're going to find a way to pull it off, and they keep playing well. And, of course, a missed field goal again, some other small mistakes. The Seahawks, once again, lose a close game. We're talking about 3 games. And then, of course, let me bring up, we lost to the 49ers again. Like I said, 49ers, superior. I hate to say it as a Seahawks fan, but they're superior. We all know that. But the Seahawks lost to the Cowboys, like I said, by 6. You lost to the Bengals by 4. That's 10 points. And by 1 to the Rams. 3 games lost by a total of 11 points. 3 games that completely changes how your season looks right now. As a 6-7 team, losing 4 straight, losing 5 out of the last 6, it's as if the season is out of hand, right? Or out of reach. It's time for a restructure. There's a lot of complaining on Twitter, online, on Facebook, on sports radio, that the Seahawks need to figure out a change, whether it's coaching, Pete Carroll getting old, whether it's the quarterback situation. Obviously, you had some Drew Lock last week because of Geno Smith's injury, but Geno Smith's not been the same quarterback this year. Fine. What is it? The answer is I don't know, and I don't think the Seahawks are figuring it out either. Because the weird thing for the Seahawks, and this is truly what I believe is, I think they're struggling to figure out, is it quarterback? Is it all the personnel? Is it, as somebody like Pete Carroll or John Schneider, they're thinking, is it the offensive coordinator? Is it Shane Waldron? I don't know. Is it Clint Hurt, the defensive coordinator? They are struggling to figure out if it's a personnel, a scheme, a coaching issue. Obviously, as a coach, you're going to say, "Oh, it's on us," but you're not going to first admit that it's me. I'm the problem. Especially a Super Bowl winning, 2-time national champion in college, a Super Bowl winning coach who's been to other Super Bowls, and Pete Carroll. He's going to put the blame on himself as a leader and as a coach, but he might not think that it's really all on me. in all reality. That's just how we work as humans. But you look at a situation where if we're 6-7, who's the blame on, right? Because 3 games, 11 points. A couple Jason Meyer field goals, this team is not 6-7. Maybe they're 8-5 or 9-4. So is it a complete disaster? Obviously not. But is it time for change? A lot of people are going to say yes. There is a lot of people that might believe, based on how these close games went this year, that tells you one thing. Maybe the coaching's not as good as it once was, and the quarterback situation. Obviously, you can look at defense as well, a huge tackling issue. It sounds like a lot of negatives, but it sounds like negatives because of those 3 games you lose by 11 points. If 1 or 2 of them go your way, your record's different, and all those little mistakes in coaching, in tackling, in field goals, in quarterback play, they kind of get pushed to the side for a little bit. Because you look at last year when you finish 9-8 and you're in the playoffs, you say, whew, Geno Smith and Pete Carroll took the Seahawks to the playoffs, and you saw Russell Wilson in Denver, and everyone wanted to do that comparison, right? Even though it's not fair, it's a completely different situation. Now, with Geno Smith gets hurt, he hasn't played the same as he did last year. Is Pete Carroll the problem? Is Geno Smith the problem? Is the defense the problem? There's so many questions all around because we've been questioning these things, right? A lot of people have been questioning Pete Carroll. A lot of people have been questioning the personnel. Have been questioning the quarterback choice. And now it's all coming together where all of them are in question because we're not closing out games. We're not winning games that we're used to seeing us win. And it makes it very confusing for a fan, for an organization, and for the future. I'm not saying the Seahawks are in complete rebuild mode, but what I am saying is it is time to start figuring out what we can do differently. The Seahawks are continually becoming a team that's just kind of in that average range. In the early 2010s, so like 2011, 12, 13, 14, we were used to being Super Bowl contenders. And then we had our era with Russell Wilson where we were used to being a continuous team that goes to the playoffs and either loses in the first or second round. Now we're slowly the last 4 or 5 years becoming a team that either makes it and loses in the first round no matter what, or doesn't even make the playoffs. So it went from, with this coaching staff, with this, ownership, I know RIP Paul Allen, but, his ownership, his sister Jody now, that whole situation, John Schneider as the GM, we went from Super Bowl or bust to playoff or bust to hopefully we can at least make the playoffs, and then we do and we lose in the first round, it's okay, at least we made it, to now might make the playoffs, might not. We might be 9-8 and make the last seed and lose in the first round, but we might also miss it by a little bit, but it's okay, we're growing. And I totally agree. It's okay to be growing, to be going in a situation where we're getting better throughout the years and we're trying to build something. And I can see that part of the Seahawks argument. The Seahawks are a young team. They're the 5th or 6th youngest team in the NFL with like an average age of 25 and a half years old. Devin Witherspoon and Tariq Woolen and the offensive line of Charles Cross and Damian Lewis and Abraham Lucas. And you have running backs and Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. And obviously they're very young. And on the receiving end, Tyler Lockett's a little older, but DK Metcalf's 25 or 26. Jackson Smith and Jigba is like 20 years old. And you have young talent. 2 young receivers that are going to be great for 5-6 years. 3 offensive linemen that might be really good for 5, 6, 7 years. Pieces on the defense that are going to be good for 5, 6, 7, 8 years at corner. Jordan Brooks at the linebacker position. Now, the problem is safeties are aging, some of them are aging, and defensive line's not fully there. But that's a slow build, right? But the quarterback situation is also a big question mark. So there's this weird in-between on both sides for the Seahawks. They have that young talent that's growing, but then they have the probably last couple of years of Bobby Wagner and Tyler Lockett, and our quarterbacks Geno Smith, and our safeties are Diggs, Jamal Adams, Julian Love. I don't know how long that's going to last. Defensive line, you have Jaron Reed again this year. They traded for Leonard Williams, but he's on a contract year, so if we don't play good at the end of this year, there's a chance that if he gets offered more money, he's probably going to go somewhere else. And so it's an odd situation. Are we in a build-to-win now situation, which it felt like when we traded for Leonard Williams, or now are we kind of in a situation where we understand we're not very good for a couple years and we have to go get a young quarterback, start developing? I think not only me, but also the organization is not sure about that answer right now. Because if they were sure about, I don't know, if they were sure about rebuilding, they wouldn't sign Geno Smith. They would have just let Drew Lock be quarterback. And I know the Geno Smith contract's not as bad as people want to say it is, but it's large enough where they thought they can maybe potentially compete with him. But it's looking like because of this season and those couple small losses that are close in score, that we don't know if we can compete with Geno Smith, in all honesty. We don't know if it's going to be competitive to the level that we want, right? Now, what do? The questions, we have to wait, right? And I think the interesting part here is, in this whole Seahawks rant, is we have 4 games left this year. And they're against the Eagles at home on Monday Night Football. And let's just say, based on how we're playing, the Eagles aren't playing great either. We have a chance to win, so don't take this as the wrong negativity. But based on how things have gone in the recent past, let's say we lost. We have a chance to beat the Titans, the Steelers, and the Cardinals. And if you do, we're talking about another 9-8 year, and you have a chance to make the playoffs. If the Rams, don't win 9 games, so you're in that tiebreaker spot, there's a chance. That complicates things moving forward because it says, hey, again, we're right there. Maybe if we're just a little better next year, even with Geno Smith, even with the same personnel, but a couple pieces, maybe we're a 10-7 team. And all of a sudden, you're talking about a way different level. 9-8 and 10-7 for some reason, 11-6. I know it's 2-3 games, but like there's huge gaps there of teams of how good you are from like 9-8 to 11-6 or 9-8 to 10-7. It's going to be so interesting to see how these final 4 games play out because it's going to tell us if the Seahawks have any belief for this future. If they go like the last 4 games and we lose 3 or 4 of them, and this team is 7-10 or 6-11, big changes have to happen in Seattle. I'm nervous but excited, and I don't mean it in negative ways, but it's also good to see what's happening here in the future, and I think we're starting to see that in Seattle. Is it time for a change, personnel, coaching, moving forward? Or are we going to kind of be on the same path next year, but maybe just a little bit better or a little bit worse because we're not quite there yet? I don't know the answer yet. I want to know what you think the answer is. And let's enjoy this next game because the Eagles is going to be fun. It's Monday Night Football. Even if we lose, just enjoy it. You never know. We could win. We almost beat Dallas in Dallas. This team's confusing, and that's one of the big issues. I'm telling you. It's confusing, and I think everyone's confused, not just me.